Hello and welcome to this first part of the tutorial I did with the YouTube celebrity Chaoswulff. Some time ago we did a stream that took about 4 hours and we covered 6 subjects in those 4 hours. And basically what we did was talk about 6 different subjects that were really basic and you probably need to think about once you start the game or right away, or some even before you start the game. This first subject we were going to talk about is the keybindings, and well, it was basically just a conversation. There's not really a step-by-step tutorial, but this is more or less a recording of our thoughts about keybindings, what to think about and what you could leave behind for a later period. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is Chaoswulff and me some time ago talking about keybindings. So let's start with keybindings. Keybindings, well, of course, they can be found in the options menu. The important thing is that you can start this game, and as I did before as well, and probably a lot of players, with keyboard and mouse, which is a very good way to start it. And if you play it the basic way, it's good enough to just keep on playing it for, well...
Keyboard and mouse is a great way to start the game if you're not sure if it's for you. Basically before you decide whether or not you want to shell out for a flight stick or a HOTAS. HOTAS being... HOTAS actually standing for hands-on flight and... hands-on throttle and stick.
Yeah, a friend of mine is a Dutchman as well, and he didn't read it correctly when I said HOTAS to him, so he very quickly made it into a hot ass.
Yeah,
which
I was calling it a hot ass for quite a while.
Which was...
I'm innocent to that one.
Yeah. Anyway, especially since a good HOTAS is probably around... well, a basic HOTAS costs around the same amount as you actually pay for the game yourself as well. So if you have paid for the game...
Entry-level ones, yeah.
Yeah, like a Thrustmaster...
E16000M HOTAS, yes.
Something like that.
Yeah, that one was specifically designed for ED as well.
So, a lot of them can be found at around 40, 50, 60 euros, around that area. If you want to go for a very good one, like an X52, maybe is it 55 as well? The
X52, X55, X54, X56, I believe. There's all those.
Yeah, those are a little more expensive. What I have is an X52, not the Pro version. What I like about that is I can do everything in the game with the sticks. I only use my keyboard and mouse on the Galaxy map.
Yeah, it's the same with me as well. I have the X52 Pro version though. I prefer it myself because it's a little bit more durable, and it's black. You've got to go for the style points.
Yeah. Well, I got the original one, which was expensive enough on itself. Anyway,
oh yeah, definitely.
If you set up your controls, you can see that there's a lot of different categories in here, and in every category there's different things you have to think about. The mouse controls, if you start with keyboard and mouse, let's just say you do. The mouse controls the X-axis and the Y-axis. So basically that is not strafing, but it's... I need to think here because I haven't played it with the mouse for quite a while. Yeah, that's yaw, so that's pointing the nose of your ship up or down, and the X-axis is... Sorry?
Yeah. There's the pitch and the yaw. So up and down, side to side is yaw.
Yeah. So that's what you use the mouse for. And then there's sensitivity as well. Relative mouse rate, mouse dead zone. So if you move it a little bit from side to side, it doesn't actually react right away. There's a small area that you can just, well, move it a little without there actually being a big reaction as well. Right at the start.
Yeah, it's pretty important if you want to fly in a straight line. If you had no dead zone at all, you'd constantly be turning a little bit left, right, up, down, all over the place.
So this of course, every single setting is important in itself, but at the same time, you might just, there's presets here. Might just want to go for the keyboard and mouse. Use the standard preset that is in the game, because they, the makers of this game. Come on, I'm Dutch. The producers, the people that made this game, actually did a lot of thinking about what is the best way to control this with a keyboard and mouse. So you are probably best off just starting with your basic setup, so with the preset, and then maybe tinkering with the settings a little yourself. So if you think that a certain button should be assigned to a certain thing at a later point, you might find out that it actually works better.
Yeah, the one thing I found when I first started playing, because I did play with a mouse and keyboard for about a couple of days before I couldn't deal with it any longer. But with what I found with a mouse and keyboard is when you were using your mouse, it was controlling the pitch, so the up and down of your ship, the nose, moving your nose up, moving your nose down, but also going side to side controlled the roll of your ship. So if you just moved your mouse to the right, you do a barrel roll. And that aggravated me no end. So I ended up swapping it so that moving the mouse side to side controlled the yaw of the ship. So in other words, pointing your nose to the right or the left so you turn. But similarly to how a car would turn. And then I then changed A and D on the keyboard, which was originally yawing left and right. I swapped that to this roll, and that just fit so much better with my playstyle and how it works for me.
Yeah, so basically what we're trying to say here is, try the settings and look at it, just feel do what comes naturally to you. For me, this was the first game in which I actually had to control something, like, a spaceship, of course, in this game, that has several axes to control. Before I played World of Tanks, World of Warships, shooter games, things like that. You've got forward, backward, to the right, to the left. That's about it. If you have a person walking around, of course you can strafe and turn. So there's two ways to go to the left. You can strafe left or you can turn left. But there's not more than that. This is 6 axes. It's totally different. So it took me actually about 6 hours before I felt comfortable enough and confident enough to leave the tutorial a bit and go into the game.
Is it bad that I never played the tutorials on this?
But you were involved in this game from, before the start, actually.
Yeah, I started late beta, early gamma.
So around that time there wasn't a tutorial, maybe?
There was, but it wasn't very good.
So that
the tutorials have actually come up to snuff.
So, and if you're using a stick, you could go for the same preset as well, so just for the basic preset, and then just work on the buttons. With an X52, both Chaoswulff and I have switched around. Chaoswulff did a very nice video about how to set up your X52 or the Pro in his his stick.
Either way, they're pretty much the same thing. The Pro is just a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more durable. So at the end of the day, they're roughly the same controller.
He made a nice video about how to control it and how to set it up in a way that felt natural to him. And I actually copied that and just used that. And that's your starting point. You work with something that someone has set up, has hours and hours of experience, and we, or the players that have played this for a very long time, don't just set it up a way that is totally unnatural. We set it up in a way that feels natural. And of course, if you start playing this game, it might feel really unnatural because of these 6 axes you have to control. And then there's different firing groups. And
Mouse DK says I make better tutorials than the devs.
And evening all, Commander William Nelson here. Well, Commander William Nelson, good evening.
Hello.
So and we have changed both our settings even afterwards. We've become accustomed. Come on, there's a tongue breaker there. we've become accustomed to a certain way to play this game with the sticks, and then at some point we still decide to change because it just feels more natural in another way.
And it always happens every time Frontier decides to add new features to the game, such as we just recently got ship launch fighters, so I ended up taking off some of the controls on my flight stick to actually go and control the fighters. So I removed my silent running from my HOTAS, so I now need to do that separately. And I use the toggle switch, which I use for that, for setting priority target for my fighter and telling them to come back to the mothership. Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, each pilot's going to have their own preferences on how to go and use a HOTAS, a flight stick, or even an Xbox controller. And I'm pretty sure once the PS4 version of the game goes live, we're going to have PS4 controller port. But at the moment, you really only need to start with the basics, such as thrust, basic movements like your lateral movements, so moving your ship up, down, left, right, specifically, back, throttle, so backwards and forwards, pitch and yaw, and roll. Those are kind of the basics that you need to do, as well as your landing gear and your ability to jump to a different system. And then the next one, those are the basic ones for flight, but then you also do need your communications, so you can actually look at your left-hand panel, your right-hand panel, so you can see and request docking to stations. Because if you don't do that, the station won't appreciate it and you'll end up getting blown up.
Among other things, yes. But that, to be honest, you don't really have to think about heat sinks or chaff at the start, because most of the time you'll start in a very small ship and there isn't a thing like chaff and a heatsink on that ship. There's not even a possibility to fit one on it, because it doesn't have enough utility mounts to fit all these things on your ship. So when you come,
dev says they do often use. Some people do actually use a controller and a keyboard as well. But you can do that with the HOTAS as well, because not all HOTAS have enough buttons to go and map everything too.
Yeah, and about that, the thrust one. My friend Tim Razor, he's been playing for about 2 weeks now. He uses that thrust thing, and there's a certain way to set that up that with certain combinations he can actually do everything with the HOTAS, but he combines buttons on the left stick, so on the throttle stick, with some buttons on the right stick. And when he combines two different buttons, it actually means something else than when he combines a few others. So it takes some time getting used to, I imagine, but at the same time he doesn't have to lift his hands from the sticks as well. So even if there's a HOTAS that hasn't got all the buttons that you actually feel you need, there might be a way to set it up. And I'll make sure.
Think of the toggles, yes.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that I have a link in the description when I upload this to set it up the right way. Insomnia Dev says here, for people who don't use a stick, they often use joint controller and keyboard. Well, I haven't got any experience with that, so I wouldn't know. I could try though.
What it means is like putting things like the open the galaxy map and so on the keyboard, or drop your landing gear or something.
Yeah.
There's not everything that you can map to a controller. I mean, I personally tried using an Xbox controller once, but I'm so used to the X52 Pro that I could not get used to it.
I can't imagine. At some point you get used to a certain system. You know, my son started playing this game as well after I started playing it on sticks. I've played with keyboard and mouse for about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month. And then I got the sticks. And then my son started playing it as well, and he started playing with keyboard and mouse. And he was like, "What's the control for this?" And I'm like, I don't really remember.
I get asked this a lot. All I can react to is, I don't know.
I just tell him, escape, options, and just search. That's about it. I don't remember. So that's what happens. Demus, I used a Microsoft Sidewinder 4 button joystick and keyboard when using laptop on holiday. 4-button joystick. Wow, then you have to bind a lot of keys to the keyboard.
Well, as long as it gives you analog control over the access to your ship, that's really all you need. Because when I first started playing, I had the standard flight stick T16000M, not the HOTAS version, and I had to have a load of things mounted, set up on my keyboard. But I was still able to fly the ship relatively easily. It's just ever since I upgraded to the Section 2 Pro, I had to relearn how to fly the ship again. So you do get kind of focused, or well, not focused. You do get used to your own set way of doing things.
So just a small recap at the end of this video. What we think is most important to think about when you start playing the game is make sure you've got all movements, so thrusters, lateral thrusters, well, up and down, sideways, every single direction. Make sure that is bound to a key that you actually think is logical and feels natural. And make sure your cargo scoop and landing gear are all bound to several keys. And the communication, so you could visit the side screens. And that's about it for the start of the game. All other settings can be done later in the game once you come across that. So make sure you do that, and well, take some time to play through the training missions or the tutorial missions in the game, and have a great time playing this game. If you ever need any help, just make sure you visit my channel or Chaoswulff's channel, and well, we'll be happy to help you. Thanks for watching so far, and we'll see you next time. Bye.